Welcome to KEATONCAST, episode 6, the podcast for all things Michael Keaton, brought to you by the Epic Film Guys. I'm your host, Justin, and tonight I'm joined by none other than the god of podcasting, LoySauce.
Oh man, what an intro. Thank you. I hope I can live up to that tonight.
Your entire life has been leading up to this moment, just to this review, so don't let them down, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here for a very special review. We attempted this last night, and you paid attention to our Instagram and our Twitter. Unfortunately, we had technical difficulties that did not allow us to release our original review of The Flash, but we're here now to give you the earliest, best review we possibly can. Because, Brian, last night we saw the final version, the final theatrical finished version of The Flash. And,
that's right. I mean, it was your third time, which is insane because the movie hasn't even come out yet. And it was my second time.
But our first time seeing the final cut, though. I mean,
yes.
and we'll talk about what that really entails, if really that much at all.
Not in specifics, because this is a spoiler-free review.
Spoiler-free right now. So we're going to give you as much as we can regarding The Flash in the next few months, because it is KEATONCAST as part of the Epic Film Guys podcast, because let's face it, okay? This is such a huge deal with him returning as Batman, and next year returning again as Beetlejuice. I mean, he's filming right now in the UK. Can you imagine, like, if we had like a portal we could just look through it right now and they'd be on set right this fucking moment and he's in full Beetlejuice garb, makeup and all, in the outfit. He's going, "Hey babe, how you doing?" Yeah. Like, it would just be so fucking cool. I mean, I swear to God, I'm gonna keep saying this. The moment, Saucy, that they reveal the first official image of him made up in the costume just on set, it's gonna fucking break the internet. I swear to God.
I mean, did you ever imagine as a kid that, like, years later, Michael Keaton would be back as Batman and Beetlejuice within a year of each other? Isn't that insane?
It's insane because I never imagined either could happen, because Michael's answer to either of those questions regarding Batman or Beetlejuice would be, if Tim wants to do it, I'll do it. And we've come to find out, and we discussed this last night in our previous recording, that, you know, they spent a lot of time together doing press for Dumbo. And when he was asked about returning as Batman, Michael seemed open to it, and he would look over at Tim, and Tim would just be like, "Oh, they're making another one of these every week." He said something like, "How about Batman versus Godzilla?" or something, like, just joking about it. So right. I think it was probably conveyed to him during that, like, you know, if you ever do want to do it, I'm not going to be involved. I don't want to do it. But Beetlejuice, as we know, is like, you know, Tim's baby. But ladies and gentlemen, we're not here to talk about Beetlejuice. We're here to talk about The Flash, Yeany Muschietti's new film that's landing in theaters next week on June 16th, officially. And I mean, apparently, I feel like by the time the movie comes out in theaters, the entire world will have seen it, because they just keep doing early screenings of the movie. Had no idea. I thought that last night's screening for press would be just press. It was not. It was loaded to the gills with fans. And as of right now, this recording, there's another one in just DC. So people are seeing this movie all over the world. I mean, they've been doing these screenings everywhere.
Well, clearly they're confident, and clearly they want to get the good word of mouth out. And it seems, just judging from early buzz and the people we've talked to at these screenings, that that word of mouth is going to be largely positive.
I mean, as of today, the embargo lifted. Our review was supposed to be up in order to be a part of that, and unfortunately, like I said, shit happens. But right now, it's sitting at 56 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes at 71% fresh. Okay. No audience rating yet. It's okay. I expected it to be much higher, actually. I expected it to be at least in the upper 80s. Um,
Well, then of course you have people on Twitter saying that the movie's a flop or mid because
just because of Ezra Miller, which is
well, no, that and the Rotten Tomatoes score. I mean, people are using that as you know uh, ammunition, I guess. But the movie hasn't come out yet. It's only based on a handful of reviews, and 70% is not a bad score. It's still fresh, so it's not like a huge critical bomb or anything. Like
keep in
it's
mind, it's not like every member of the press has seen it. Like, I think this is just the majority, but there's going to be plenty more people added to the mix here. It's strange to see it as low as it is, even though it's not that low, considering like the high praise that I've sent towards it, and all these other people have sent towards it.
well,
After
also Justin.
and
Also, you're biased because you've seen the movie and you like the movie, so.
well, I mean, I'm just basing this off of the reactions from CinemaCon, where I saw it, where it was like the first big, basically like the first premiere of the movie, even though it was like unfinished, if you will. And then seeing it twice there since, where these audience reactions are literally bonkers. I mean, this is an audience participation movie at its best. I mean,
Yeah.
we saw what happened last night, and then when I hosted the fan screening a few weeks ago, which you were also there as an attendee. I mean, people are going wild for this thing. So we're going to try
Let's
to
get into it. Yeah.
we're going to keep it as spoiler free as we possibly can, because we don't want you to listen and have anything ruined for you. I've already kind of said my initial thoughts on this on previous KEATONCAST episodes, so we'll jump right to you, because no one's heard your thoughts on this. You haven't written a review, you haven't posted about it on social media. What are your initial thoughts on The Flash?
Well, I think this is an easy movie to be cynical about. We're inundated with comic book movies, these $200 million plus, big event spectacle movies. And you and I have talked plenty of times about how they feel less and less special. As Tim Burton said, there's one coming out every week practically. So, um, you know, to have a movie that's so crammed full of like shameless fan service to almost like a ghoulish degree, like it's easy to be grumpy about a movie like this. Um, but it's difficult to be too cynical about it because this is a movie that's so eager to entertain, and it succeeds with flying colors. I enjoy The Flash quite a bit. Um, I've seen it now twice. I might see it a third time. It has its fair share of problems. It has its fair share of heart and its fair share of humor too. So, the story is your kind of boilerplate time travel mix up. Barry Allen goes back in time to prevent a tragedy, which ends up disrupting the multiverse, and hijinks ensue. It's all
That's your
very
classic line. Everyone, they couldn't wait for it. There it is.
and everyone stands up and applauds and
They
stops
do.
listening. No, it's all very Back to the Future, which I think the film is very aware of. It's mentioned several times by name in the dialogue, and it's no small wonder that Robert Zemeckis was originally courted to direct this film. So instead of Zemeckis, though, we get Andy Muschietti, who I think is, having seen the film, I can say for sure that I think he's a fantastic choice to helm this movie. It's a big movie. There's a lot of spinning plates, and I think Muschietti manages to keep them all in the air pretty skillfully. You're dealing with a lot of converging storylines and universes, and kind of not clashing tones, but you have the kind of comic booky goofy moments, and then you have more serious moments, and more gripping character stuff. But right from the opening scene, I think the movie strikes the perfect tone and lets strap in, because you're in for a ride. So just off the cuff initial thoughts. I think this is a really fun movie.
Yeah.
I think people are going to have a good time with it.
It's a crowd pleaser. I mean, if these screenings are any indication, and I think they definitely are, because you and I have done so many events, so many screenings of movies. You and I both work for the Alamo Draft House, and we've done these things. We've lived them. Also, press screenings as well, and just early screenings of movies. We've kind of been in and out of that and seen how people can react to these things. And I'm not, this is not hyperbole in any way. I've not seen this kind of reaction to a movie in a long time, where people are like getting up and cheering and clapping. Just people are just so excited about it. And this is a good thing. We're not going to bring up, all the issues with Ezra Miller and what they've been dealing with and such. They will be attending the premiere. They will not be doing press for the film. They said they wanted to make the movie about the movie and not about themselves, which is very fair to say. But it's good that they're going to be there, because the movie, let's be clear, is about the Flash. This is a Flash movie. I live in the Michael Keaton Batman realm, if you will. Running a Batman group and on Instagram and everywhere else. It's my favorite thing in the world, so rightly so. But I've had to correct people in saying that, like, listen, like, you have to come to terms with the fact that this is not a Tim Burton Batman movie. This is not a Zack Snyder Batfleck. It's literally a Flash movie, and we get lots of cool stuff that happens with characters that we know and love. And the only unfortunate thing is that Michael Keaton himself will not be attending the Hollywood premiere. He is shooting Beetlejuice 2, as we talked about earlier, and he apparently really wanted to be there. He kept talking about it, and just that's why they did that screening in London this last Saturday, where they showed Batman 89 and The Flash to a sold out audience. It was like an Empire Magazine VIP event in which he did a Q&A, and that was like his version of a premiere for people, so they could come out and see it and hear him talk about it. Big bummer, because all of us are like, dude, it's like 31 years later and you're back and we want to hear you talk about it. And it's like, nope, I'm sorry, I'm doing this other movie. But that's cool though, because it's Beetlejuice 2, so it makes sense. It's not going to hurt us that much. But getting back to Ezra, I mean, the first thing I can say right off the bat is just, you are not ready for their performance in this movie. They are absolutely fucking brilliant. I mean, the work they do. They're playing two different versions of their character from two different times. I mean, I can't even remember the last time, if there is a last time, where I saw an actor have to endure that.
Eddie Murphy in the Nutty Professor movie. I mean, I don't know. I mean, to have, you're right, like two / maybe more versions of essentially, I mean, the same character. It's Barry, but Barry from different universes, so they're distinct. They have distinct personalities, kind of, and I mean, I think he nails the comedy, even though not every joke lands. I think your mileage will vary as far as the humor goes in the film. Like I said, there are moments that I think could have been just snipped right out of the movie, and it might have been better for it, in terms of like, nah, not every scene needs a joke. But like I said, I think he nails the comedy. He's more than up to the task for the emotional beats of the movie. I mean, you and I were just talking last night about the ability for him to, cry on cue, and
I mean, it happens like 100 fucking times in the movie. I swear to God, it's insane to see an actor of that caliber just continuously do that. I mean,
when you're an actor, your job is to act. So I get it. Like, I mean, he's doing his
job.
I'm
telling you, I don't remember the last time I saw someone cry so much at a fucking movie, let alone a comic book movie.
Well, yeah, and to have your hero be vulnerable, and to have your main actor be vulnerable, it's refreshing to see. And it's not easy to do, to play off of yourself, essentially. I do think the twin, effect that they do, the visual effect of having two Ezra Millers on screen at the same time, is for the most part pretty seamless.
I would say, I would dare say, almost fully seamless. There's a few spots here and there I noticed, because make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, the version we saw, the final version, the effects were slightly polished. I know that was a huge subject, especially on film Twitter. The Snyder Bros shitting all over the movie because of the CGI. It is better than the CinemaCon cut, which I saw at CinemaCon, which they've been screening early. It's not like it's perfect or anything. I don't think any movie is, but it does look
Well,
better.
especially when you're dealing with a movie like this where there is nary a shot in the film that doesn't have some kind of visual effect.
Very
I mean,
true. It's almost like it's fully animated in a weird way. I mean,
yeah, I mean, we're seeing what can be done with superhero movies and animation with the Spider-Verse movies and all of that. This is, it's live action, but it's basically animated because, like I said, the screen is just awash in CGI. Some of the CGI effects are outstanding. Others, I just have to say, kind of hokey. Um,
we can't get
when
into we can't get into detail on that though.
no,
Really too deep though.
no. I mean, I will say that to my eyes, there were some effects that were polished, but it has to be said there's some gummy worm effects in this movie, and it didn't bother me because I'm more of a big picture movie watcher, and I'm able to overlook if a movie has strong characters, a good story. The effects aren't the most important thing for me, but I know that people will have issue with the CGI.
I mean, in the world we live in, where all these movies are so visual effects driven, there's going to be people talking about it. It's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in. No matter how good they are, this is the truth. It doesn't matter who's directing it. Denis Villeneuve, fucking Steven Spielberg. It doesn't matter who it is. It's going to get picked apart. People are going to talk about how whether it's deep fake or de-aging or whatever it is, it's always a subject of contention. I'm kind of sick of it. But I understand. I mean, like, we live in a world where, like, this is filmmaking, which is in a strange way, but this is how movies are made today. Nothing in the movie, I'll say, in the initial version or this final version took me out of the movie entirely. So
Not entirely, but especially. I don't want to spoil anything. I do think the movie opens with a bang, with a great,
oh my god, that opening sequence! Holy shit! Is this not like one of the best opening sequences of any comic book movie ever? I
mean,
like it is.
it's extremely energetic. Again, I think Muschietti is having a lot of fun with the character and showing you right off the bat what the character can do in a way that has almost like a dark humor to it. I can't even describe it because you'll just have to see it, but I couldn't even believe what I was seeing on screen.
I can say this much. We can talk about this much because it's kind of in the trailer. Barry's just on his way to work. And we know from, seeing him in Zack Snyder's Justice League, because we're not going to talk about Joss Whedon's piece of shit. But, the Flash has a high metabolism. Like, the dude needs to eat, like, I swear to God, dude. I mean, I wish I had that metabolism. Every single dude in the world wishes. Because we see him later on shirtless and he's, like, fucking ripped and shit. It's like, but it's like, he's just there waiting for his morning sandwich. He's late because he's irresponsible. He's more responsible than we're used to seeing from this version of the character, but he's still irresponsible. He's still late because he's the Flash. He's like, dude, I know I could be there in like a split fucking second. It doesn't matter. And he's waiting for his sandwich to be made. And it's very fun comic relief. And then it immediately turns into like this situation where like he's needed to do something. And then it builds to this amazing, bonkers, crazy batshit action sequence that you never expected. You're like, and the way the movie opens and the title card and everything, you're like, oh my God, you get all excited. Then like, there's some comedy there. And then we get the title card and you're just like, you're in for it. It's like, boom. It just bashes you over the head.
It's very over the top, very comic booky, and it's really fun. And like I said, right off the bat, it establishes the perfect tone. And Muschietti, I mean, he's dealing with some pretty wacky concepts here. I mean, the Flash's speed powers, how they're visualized on screen, phasing, how he phases, through walls and through doors and stuff. The Chrono Bowl, which is like how basically he runs so fast that he's able to like melt time, and that's just a really wacky visual. So I have to give, first of all, credit to Zack Snyder because
yes, credit where credit is due. Without Zack Snyder, this movie could not exist.
Right, but I mean, you watch, his cut of Justice League, and you can see what the Flash is capable of, and it was really kind of heartwarming because he saves the day, really, in the end. So to have this kind of like underdog, quirky, like a little awkward, a little flighty character, be a hero is really exciting, um, and the way that the powers were visualized on screen, his speed powers, I do have to give credit to Zack Snyder. I mean, I haven't been a fan of certainly all of his films, especially his films in the DC universe, but I loved Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that a lot of that comes down to the casting of Ezra Miller as the Flash and the way that the character is portrayed in that movie and in this one as well. And I do have to say that Muschietti visualizes these out there concepts in a very dynamic and creative way that's really like straight off of like a comic book splash page. I mean, it feels like you're reading a huge DC Comics crossover issue, when
It
you're watching
does.
this movie.
Or watching like the initial Justice League cartoon, the Bruce Timm Paul Dini Justice League cartoon. Like I felt that vibe throughout the entire movie, even though we're not seeing, those versions of those characters, but like that seemed like an influence in terms of like how these characters are interacting, the visual aspect of it. I mean, the movie has an energy, and like that's the thing a Flash movie fucking needs. Clearly, he has a lightning bolt on his chest. You need that kind of energy, and like it's interesting to see such a youthful energy just interjected into this thing. I it blew me away the first time I watched it in terms of the opening sequence, and it blew me away last night on my third watch. And I think based on the audience reaction and how strongly it opens, I think people are just going to be in for a wild fucking roller coaster ride. I mean, this is the epitome of those fun summer blockbusters the way we used to remember them before we got them like every week. And this is nothing against any other movie in the genre or anything, but there's an old school sensibility running through this thing where it looks like Andy kind of looked at like maybe even, Tim Burton's Batman, Superman, the movie, maybe even Star Wars, and just said like, what do these movies used to be for audiences before they just got so, filled up into the theaters every other month, or they became kind of just like, kind of basic, if you will.
Well, there was an effort, I think, to make this like decidedly. I mean, again, it's no innovative masterpiece of it is what it is, and it's comfortable in being what it is. But there's real strong character work in this movie. There is an emotional core. There is a story being told. There is, it has like a fun tone to it. It's not dour. It's not obnoxious and loud and stupid. It really is, an emotional kind of experience, and it feels special in a way that not all superhero movies do.
Well, I think we can let the cat out of the bag in terms of the basic reasoning in which Barry decides to do what he does. I mean, it's in the trailers. I think we kind of know the basic origin of the character. His dad is imprisoned, and he's wrongfully accused, or at least Barry thinks he is. And he doesn't get to live a life with his mother, who he loves so deeply. He just wants to be with his family, and this is something that haunts him. And the movie opens, and he's like basically Ben Affleck's Batman's best friend. Like they talk. It's like this strange relationship where you're like, you never would expect Batman to have a best friend. It's the closest thing he probably would have.
Well, it's kind of like a surrogate father type situation because, Barry's father is in jail. Like I feel like Barry kind of looks up to Bruce Wayne and Batman in a way. And by the way, I mean, I don't think it's any great spoiler either to say that Ben Affleck is in the movie.
He's in the movie, and it's great to see him back as his last time as Batman and Bruce Wayne. I mean, he himself said in interviews that he felt this was his best outing as the character. And I mean, he has fully stood behind everything he did with Zack Snyder. He was just at the SnyderCon event last month when they showed the the IMAX version on the big screen for fans of, the Snyder cut of Justice League. So he's been fully behind it the entire time, but we know he's one and done. He's done at this point. He doesn't want to do any more. And I think the Snyder fans, myself included, I was one of them. I still am. But I think there's this acceptance we have to have in terms of the actor and the art where they no longer want to be involved. I feel like even getting Affleck involved in this movie might have been a challenge because I don't believe that his contract had anything to do with this movie. I think it was probably a separate thing after he had finished the additional footage they had to shoot for Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Well, I hope that, Zack Snyder fans will be satisfied with, his inclusion in the movie. He's not in it for that long, so don't go in with any expectations of having him be in 50% of the movie, because that's not the case. I will say I enjoyed. He has a great chase sequence through the streets of Gotham. That's very exciting. But I will say that the suit,
oh my God,
does not look good at all.
I was told behind the scenes by some people that know some people that know some other people that worked on the production of the movie, that just said that the suit was rushed for some reason, which who knows what that means, but it shows. It's literally the ugliest thing he's worn. And this comes after we've had him in Dawn of Justice in what is, arguably the most comic book accurate bat suit to ever exist on film. And it's a thing of beauty. Like, sitting behind me, I have my hot toys of that suit of Affleck in it. And I couldn't pass it up. I bought everything when that movie came out with him in that suit. Cause I'm like, dude, that's Batman. We had to sit through, the Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises suit. And that was like horrendous. So we finally got Batman looking like Batman. And, they changed it for Justice League, and if you will, and whatever we got after. But this just looked like strange. No, I get that they kind of constructed this thing to like be able to handle some damage, because he has to do some serious shit in his sequence. But it's just, yes, we get the gray and the blue a little bit, but it's gaudy,
especially
as fuck.
Because
it's gaudy
especially because Batman we're used to seeing him in the shadows and the dark streets of Gotham. It's not meant to be seen in broad daylight like it is in the movie. So, but it is great to see him.
So yeah, fans are going to be excited to see him in the movie, but we need to get to the bigger picture here. What we're really all about, to be as honest as we possibly can, as I sit in front of the theatrical one-sheet teaser in a light box on my wall in my collection room that is also my podcast studio.
I see it. It's a thing of beauty.
The return of the greatest cinematic Batman of all time, Michael Keaton, returning to don the cape and cowl. What appears to be possibly one last time. We don't know. We know what happened when Gunn came in to take over DC. They canceled Batgirl, in which was pretty much fully filmed and finished except for the CGI.
It's a brain dead decision, by the way. But
it's a thing. It's a movie. They could have just put it on. I keep wanting to call it HBO Max, and I forgot they took out the HBO. They just call it Max, the place where you find your HBO. Worst decision ever.
Another brain dead decision. But yes. Michael Keaton's Batman returns, and I didn't really have an inkling of how much screen time Keaton would have when he was announced to return. Whether it would be a cameo or...
I knew it wouldn't be. I
had no way of knowing anyway. So
yes, you did, because you're close to me. So, my mentality...
I think fans will be very pleased with the amount of screen time that he has.
Yes.
I was.
My mentality behind the whole thing was from the start, and I had to, even without knowing for sure, I had to correct people, because it makes no sense why Warner Brothers would be like, hey, let's revitalize what we're doing. Let's kind of do like a quick switch to change format and bring back Michael Keaton. and pay him as much fucking money as they paid him to come back for this and not put him in the bat suit. People were still claiming like a year out before we saw any major footage. I think before we saw the first initial teaser trailer, if you will, as part of the DC event, people were still saying, no, it's going to be like Batman Beyond. He's just going to be there as a mentor. And that made no sense to me. Like, dude, at the time they shot the film, he was in his late 60s. And I'm telling you, if you go to the fucking gym, I see dudes in their late 60s that are fucking ripped and jacked and they can lift and they're strong and they're agile. And also, it doesn't fucking matter because guess what? He's in a bat suit. So it really doesn't make any difference. It's almost like having like a 70-year-old Tony Stark. He's in an advanced armored suit. It doesn't matter how old he is. And also there's that little thing that we kind of bring up when we watch movies called suspension of disbelief. So that,
I mean, you're going to need it to get through this movie, but yeah,
well, very true. But I'm just saying, like the idea that people thought they would go to all this trouble just to bring back Keaton and that he would agree to do it to just stand around. Now, granted, we know he was in Morbius for all of fucking 5 seconds. You know, I mean, they probably paid him a cool $1 million for that, actually. But
sure.
You know, the reality is that we know that Batman, not Beetlejuice. I mean, Beetlejuice kind of was his hit back into being, you know, a Hollywood name because he had a string of kind of duds, if you will, in terms of box office. But Batman was the thing that made him an international star. Like, it made him huge. And I know that he appreciates it. I know it's been kind of this love and hate relationship over the last, you know, at this point, you know, next year it'll be the 35th anniversary of the original Batman. He's had to live with that, you know, Batman this, Batman that. But he appreciates it. I think he finally came to terms with the fact, I mean, when you get to be an older age, you're like, this is kind of my legacy. Like, what am I going to be known for? When he passes away, it's literally going to say in his obituary, Batman and Beetlejuice actor Michael Keaton. It's not going to say Birdman. It's not going to say Mr. Mom. It's not going to say fucking Night Shift or
Multiplicity.
God forbid Multiplicity. Or maybe it'll say Jack Frost, though. I don't know. Maybe people are coming around on that one. I don't know.
Snow Dad's better than No Dad.
Right? But I mean, the reality is, like, he knows, like, every single person that walks up to him is going to say either Batman or Beetlejuice. And I love the fact that he embraced it. And getting to him being in the movie, it shows because, dude, he does not phone in a single second. When he puts on the cape and cowl, it's almost as if he never left us. Like, we've never seen a single other cinematic Batman since him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his inclusion is kind of like, you know, a bigger problem that I have with the movie and movies in general. This is the ultimate clap because you recognize it movie. So Keaton's casting feels very, I don't want to say pandering, but it feels very much like a nostalgia pull for people. I think his inclusion is why a lot of people are wanting to see this movie.
I dare say 90% of people. I mean, you and I had this discussion last night. It needs to be brought up again. What happens in this movie is what Star Wars fans wanted to see in The Last Jedi, with Luke Skywalker returning.
More along the lines of what they probably wanted to see.
That's what I'm saying. What they wanted to see, not what they got. And that makes me happy because I understand. I mean, as much as I love that movie,
The Last Jedi.
Yes, The Last Jedi. I can understand fans' perspectives on, like, you're going to bring him back after this many years. Like, you want the character that you know and love, and they do that here. They do that here, and
they do.
And I think that probably I would dare say Keaton would not have returned unless it was like, that's the version. Like, you know, there's some questionable things that they do with the character. I mean, his introduction may take fans aback a little bit because it's a little bit weird, but at the same time,
well, like, to see him kind of like flipping around and fighting Kryptonian soldiers, and I mean Burton's version of the character, that was never it was meant to exist in that universe. So to have him, doing things that you otherwise wouldn't see Batman do. I mean, I think they do a really good job with how they wrote the character. I think he has a stellar kind of intimate character scene with Barry that I thought was very well written. I think that Keaton gives a strong performance and is the character that we remember, while also being a little older, a little grizzled and world-wizened. And also, it's just impossible not to get shivers when you see him in the bat suit.
How do you not? I mean, every screening I've been to, and I shit you not, I keep mentioning this, but when I saw it at CinemaCon, and there's a huge balcony. I think there's like 2 balconies there. It was like so fucking packed. And this is industry people, some YouTube film critics. Like I'm pretty sure that Jeremy Johns was sitting right behind me during that. It was just like this huge event, right? Everyone wanted to be there, and no one knew if they were going to get in for sure or not. And the moment that he comes out in the suit for the first time, and you hear the Elfman theme swelling in the background, building with that high operatic chorus, the whole fucking auditorium just went, like it was the return of Jesus Christ himself. and that's literally that's what we want. And I don't see anything against that. I mean, none of us thought it could ever happen. That's the key thing. It's not like Luke Skywalker. We're like, he might possibly do it. Or, with Indiana Jones, this summer we're getting Dial of Destiny. We already had him come back in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That moment was probably as exciting for a lot of fans before they saw the movie. But you know what I mean? Like, we've seen those characters return. And when it came to Keaton and Batman, it just seemed like it was almost like impossible that he would do it. And the fact that he did it and he put on the suit, and what you see him do in the movie is so impressive. I mean, it's literally, like I said, he's in his late 60s when he shoots this thing, and granted, there's CGI to help, there's stunt guys and stuff like there's in any other movie, but when you see him, it's Batman. There's no question.
It is like a dream come true. And I mean, you could argue, because I do have reservations of like, the Spider-Man No Way Homes and the Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's just like, again, it is fan service to the nth degree. I mean, and callbacks out the asshole. Like, we're not even scratching the surface of like the amount of references and characters that show up in this movie. But it is, I mean, fan service is called fan service for a reason. So it was extremely cool to see Michael Keaton's Batman doing things that Michael Keaton's Batman would do.
You cheered at every single moment that we got.
Not every single moment.
Oh,
not every single moment.
Yes, we did.
If I could clip the "Let's get nuts" line out of the movie, I would. I think that's a bridge too far for me.
I would dare ask you, what would you have him say in that moment in the film? Because it's a build-up moment.
I wouldn't have him say anything. Just
you
get
just
to the
have
action.
Him stand there?
Yeah, why not? That's all we need. Anyway,
how dare you?
I'm not a screenwriter. I am a film critic. So.
Very fair. I mean, I'm not sure I would have had him said the nuts thing either, but he came out recently at that screening in London and said that he came up with that on the set of Batman, that was not in the script, that Sam Hamm or Warren Scarron came up with, or anyone else on the set. He just came up with that in the middle of the scene. It was just improvised. So maybe he on the set was like, it just did it, and everyone was like, yeah, do that again.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll get, applause in the theater. Yeah, I'm sure that's what happened.
It does.
Not from me. I mean,
everyone else around you though, so you must have felt pretty alone.
Again, this is the ultimate like clap because you recognize it movie. I mean, there was one guy, especially in the theater, who clapped at every opportunity. And
well, some of the shit that he was clapping at, I didn't recognize, and I was like, why is he clapping now? Maybe he was just really happy to be there because he got to see an early screening of a movie he's very excited about. You ever think of that, Brian?
Great.
You ever think of that?
That's great. I'm really happy for him. One thing that I think people are going to be talking about besides Michael Keaton's Batman is Supergirl.
Oh,
and
shit. Yes.
And because that was a surprise for me. I knew that Supergirl was going to appear in the film and that she was going to be a kind of a main player. But she kind of steals a lot of the movie. And the actress playing her name is Sasha Kaye.
She's a beast. She's an absolute force of nature in this thing. Absolutely, like literally just, I mean, she's kind of scary, man. She's a force of nature. Like
it's intense. Yeah.
It's really intense.
And her action scenes are some of the most standout, scenes of the movie. She has, again, like she has something behind her eyes that's just very captivating. And she makes for a great foil because Barry, he's a little bit more happy-go-lucky. He's a little bit more.
Well, both Barrys, yeah.
Yeah.
One is sillier than the other.
Right. But she makes for a great, like, not foil, but the characters complement each other very well because, we don't get a whole lot of her backstory, but we understand enough to this is a character who has had, some pain in her life. And it also is in connection to the General Zod character from Man of Steel. And
Michael
I have
Shannon,
to say,
he returns. He's there.
Yeah, he returns, and we're talking about Michael Keaton not phoning in his performance.
Oh no! How dare you?
How
dare you? You got to consider that the character of Zod is literally like this monotone. I will speak to you like this, and I will tell you because I'm a Kryptonian warrior. Of course, he has no personality. Did you not watch Man of Steel? I know it's one of your favorite comic book movies of all fucking time.
There's parts in Man of Steel. There's parts in Man of Steel where he gets mad and he yells, and he's in again. He's
find him.
Precisely. I mean, one of the greatest line reads in
as he's spitting history. All over the place, and you actually see his spit like splattering all over the actors that were like right next to him. For sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
If anyone's out there listening and has not seen the YouTube video of Michael Shannon reading that completely unhinged sorority letter, do yourself a favor, type in Michael Shannon sorority letter, and it's the greatest.
Let's face it here. We have one of the best living actors of all time in this movie. And unfortunately, here's the weird thing about Michael Shannon. Like, he needs better movies. He really does.
He does. Yeah. He was fantastic in Nocturnal Animals. His performance in that was phenomenal.
When that was how many years ago? I'm just saying, like, he's one of the best. I believe it was like a year or two ago where someone was at a bar and they were like, "Oh, I'm just sitting at a bar next to Michael Shannon. He's watching the Oscars at a bar and he's just drinking a beer at a bar."
Maybe he just wanted to be at a bar.
No, I'm just saying, like that's the mentality. Like, I love the man. He's brilliant, and I love the fact that
Oh, The Shape of Water as well. I mean, he's to your point.
Exactly. I mean, that's an Oscar winner, so he's working with the best of the best. I just love the idea that he had this integrity. That when he was asked to do the film, because I watched the recent interview he did regarding these things they do that I love, where they're like their career. Iconic performances, if you will, whether it's Vogue or whatever other publication does it. And he said, like, Zod died, right? And like, yeah. And then he wanted to get Zack Snyder's blessing. And that's how much he cared about the role and the performance that he did in Man of Steel and in Zack Snyder's vision. And I give him so much credit for that. And then, of course, Zach gave his blessing because he knows that this is an offshoot. Like, there's Snyder fans out there acting like this is not like part of that, but like everything Zach started is still part of this movie. And
I mean, it definitely kind of puts a bow on the whole Snyderverse and the whole DCEU as a whole, because we know that things are going to be a little different with James Gunn in charge. But this movie kind of brings it all together, and it all comes full circle. I do have to say, the confrontation with Zod and the Kryptonian forces. It basically leads up to like a fight in a big empty field in the desert.
You say field as if there's actually like a field there, but it's just a desert, Brian.
It's a digital.
There's no plants or anything.
It's a digital void.
Is there wheat? Are there cows there?
It's a void, is what I'm saying.
I'm asking because in Man of Steel we see them fighting in an actual cornfield. So you say field.
Well, in Man of Steel, we also see them fighting in a populated city, and we see, people running away from falling buildings and destruction and ash raining down from the sky. So I think they were trying to avoid that
Even though
imagery
we
in
see
this.
that imagery in the movie.
We do. But I think, they didn't want the fight to be in the middle of the city. So I understand. I just feel like it didn't look the best. It just kind of had this gray color palette, and I get it. But
It should have been my opinion on that sequence at the end is it should have, even though it's supposed to be harkening back to what we see in Man of Steel, it should have been like dark and stormy and like thunderstorm to make it, darker and cooler and more atmospheric. And then, rather than like the extremely bright, ugly white, like yucky, just oversaturated, like, I don't know. It looks like they just put a filter on it, went like, yeah, here we go. Let's do this.
Yeah. But I will say that Zod is not the main big bad in the movie, and that fight in the desert or the field or whatever is not
that
the
field
climax.
That cornfield without any corn in it, out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. Yeah.
You know what I meant. Anyway, that's not the climax of the movie. There is it almost has kind of like a quieter wrap up to everything that I really appreciated. Again, this movie really hit home for me emotionally both times I saw it. And I think that comes down to Ezra Miller. I mean, again, they've been the subject of many a controversy. If you choose not to support this movie as a result, that's your prerogative. But we're judging the movie, not the personal lives of the stars. And you have to admit that Ezra Miller, it just gives a virtuoso performance in this thing.
Absolutely brilliant performance.
And it really drives that emotional core home. So I have to ask, Justin, since we're kind of wrapping up here.
Are we? I haven't even talked about all the cool bat gadgets like we get to see Michael Keaton use.
I mean, all the same bat gadgets we've seen him use before.
I will say this much, ladies and gentlemen, that the new Batwing is a character.
Oh, yeah.
is a character all unto itself.
That's pretty badass.
And it's something to be very excited about. I mean, people were like, "Oh, a new Batwing, yeah," but it's not the original. I'm like, just wait until you see this fucking thing on screen because it's amazing. And
you have the toy, don't you? You have the.
It's right behind me. I have the cheaper. I've got two versions: the Spin Master, the large version, and the smaller version. The McFarlane I did not buy because it's $250. And guess what? Believe it or not, my wife will literally slit my throat in my sleep and be like, "You're not buying that toy. That's that expensive." Considering, because I have other toys.
You have plenty of other Batman merchandise.
Pre-purchase that have to do with Michael Keaton's Batman. I mean, that's the one thing that this movie gave me and all of you listening that are Keaton fans. More Keaton Batman merchandise. Toys, shirts, hats, bat gear, bat socks, bat shoes.
My question to you, Justin, was...
Yes.
We've seen two different versions of this film. This was the final cut with an added scene at the end, a credit sequence and a post-credit sequence, or the main title animation, and then a post-credit scene, none of which we saw in the first screening. So I have to ask, what do you think of the new ending without spoiling it for our listeners?
No.
No.
I mean, here's the thing.
I kind of liked how they had it before.
I did too. I'm sure there's going to be people listening that got to watch the CinemaCon cut where the movie ends on a high note and you don't know where it's supposed to lead. Unfortunately, or fortunately, if you will, I don't know however you want to look at it. I knew the different endings that were shot for the film. I knew there were at least 3. I knew specifically what they were. And I knew as of the last few weeks, they were playing with 2 specific endings to see which one worked better. We got the one that apparently won. And I assume played better with, test audiences.
I feel like the ending kind of comes across as a joke. which is fine because I feel like
the
that
whole
fits.
movie, there's so much comedy in the movie, like it fits
Right.
the tone, like you said. And when we talked about the other potential ending, which I will bring up and I will reveal on our full spoiler review, probably wouldn't have landed as hard as this did. I mean, I'll just say this much: the audience we had last night loved the ending. Like they fucking roared at this shit. Like they just had a
Yeah.
blast with it. And I think that, the movie's so emotional at its core, and what it deals with. You wanted to like let the movie end on a high note and like this kind of like really fun, silly moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the original ending definitely would have inspired conversation, and debate about what the direction of the DCEU is going to be. Because what if they decide to make the Flash 2, or like if a certain.
We heard the other day that like there's a finished script for the sequel, so we don't know what that means, if it means anything at all.
Right. So, I mean, to kind of maybe leave it on an ambiguous note might have served them a little bit better. But I think they wanted to have like one last like big laugh and reaction from the audience, and it lands, but it may upset some people depending on.
Upset me, and there's a reason why. And I don't want to reveal that because I really don't want to review that or anything on this episode. I just want to leave it as is. I know that people that are listening to this, most of you've already seen the earlier cut from early screenings, because let's face it, by the time the movie comes out, everyone in the fucking world will have seen the thing. That's not a bad thing or anything. It's just the way Warner Brothers wants to handle it. We know that this was an uphill battle, that the movie almost didn't happen. I mean, a year and a half ago, we were still wondering if it was even going to be released.
I mean, I will say too that, like, I mean, this film has been through so many directors, delays because of COVID-19 and post-production, issues. So like, it's been a long road to get here because the movie's been in development for so long. And honestly, the movie doesn't feel like,
it doesn't feel like it's by committee.
It doesn't. It doesn't feel like it's been, too many cooks in the kitchen has spoiled the soup. It really does feel like it's a movie, even though it does have its faults, that people cared about and wanted to make. And I'm pleased it's as good as it is. You know what I mean? After all that, I'm glad we have the Flash in this form. And like I said, I've seen it twice. I'll probably see it a third time. In the words of Barry Allen himself, or other Barry, or younger Barry, it beeves.
It beeves. And in the words of other Barry, the one we're talking about, but the other one, I don't know what that means. But I'll go with it for you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to give a number rating to the movie right now. We just want you to go see it and enjoy it. It's very apparent based off of this review that we both had a blast. And I think every single person, regardless of age, will go see this movie. It's a family-friendly movie. I think everyone's going to have a blast. It's emotional. It's funny. It has all of those fun throwbacks that LoySauce loves so much that he pretends like he doesn't love, but he does.
Easter eggs, the movie.
When someone says like a line,
cameos, the movie.
You remember from 30 years ago, or actually 35? Hold on.
You old.
Of course, I want to hear him say the same thing. I want to see him do the same thing. Why wouldn't I? Just saying. But thank you so much for listening to the spoiler-free episode of the Epic Film Guys podcast with our review of The Flash. We're releasing this still over a week before it comes out, even though, like I said, everyone in the world is seeing this thing. I think it's going to be huge. I hope it's huge. I want DC to do well. I'm just super excited about the whole thing. I mean, this entire thing for me was such a journey from beginning to end. And, I mean, a dream come true in terms of the opportunities that were given to me and offered by Warner Brothers, and them realizing, that the fandom surrounding Michael Keaton's Batman is so strong and so special, and, them doing some things to let us see the movie early and just throw it to audiences and let them enjoy it. And I couldn't be more thankful, more gracious surrounding those things. So thank you, Warner Brothers. And just honestly, thank you, Andy and Barbara, for, what you said when you did that video. I don't know how long ago it was you did it, but the fact that you said you decided to make this movie when you realized you could bring back Michael Keaton as Batman. And I mean, just for us fans, I mean, it literally is like something we never ever imagined could happen. So thank you for that.
Thank you all for listening.
Yeah. And if it's your first time, if it's your last time,
good riddance. No, I'm just
this town needs an enema. Brew, brew. Leave us a review on iTunes. It only takes a few minutes. If you use Spotify, it's even faster. You just have to push your button on stars. And also, we have a Patreon where we're doing most of our major KEATONCAST episodes. So check that out, patreon.com/epicfilmguys. And of course, we're on every podcatcher and on social media at Epic Film Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just come say hi. We'd love to have you. We have our fan group on Facebook. Come say hi. Be a part of the fun. But until next time, I'm Justin.
And I'm LoySauce.
And as always, we like to say, we'll see you
at the movies.
I'm Batman.